Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are live for another edition of NASCAR 06 Total Team Control on the channel, and today we are NASCAR Cup Series racing for the custom schedule season race number 2 of 36, and we are back at the Daytona International Speedway as we were for the 500 on Sunday. We are here for a little bit of a different race at Daytona just 4 days later as we are on the road course, the infield road course layout on this game, so kind of a fantasy track. Also, some parts are real to the actual Daytona road course, some, or I should say most, are not, but needless to say, Daytona road course for race number 2. We'll see if we'll go for a second different winner in the second race of the season. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content as we get into today's full race live stream, live realistic commentary. No practice for today's race. I nailed the setup right out of the gate in qualifying, though, as Greg Biffle will be on the pole. Lap 1 is going to be the toughest corner on this racetrack, and my expectations, at least for it, coming into this race, it's probably the most narrow corner on the racetrack, at least in single car. I'd have to imagine on the starts and restarts it'll be much more chaotic as well, but we'll see how this is going to go. 1, 2, 3 for Roush Fenway Racing at the front of the field. They ran very well through speed weeks at Daytona, looking for a strong start in today's race as well at the Daytona road course. Green flag is in the air, and Greg Biffle's going to lead this 43 car field to the green. 142 laps of racing at Daytona Beach here this afternoon into the evening. Size Daniel Powers, Beast Motivator, Billy Kramer, Bentley Potts, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Kurt Busch going to get the second, at least side by side for second with Mark Martin in the 6th. Greg Biffle trying to set the pace early. We know track position matters on these road courses, so it was good for Biffle that he had a great qualifying effort. Wasn't that great on lap 1. He made a mistake in turn 1. That was the only corner that was treacherous for him in either of the 2 laps, but it was luckily the first, so lap 2 he was able to run a clean lap, and he was able to get the pole. And already pulling away just over half a lap into this opening lap of the race. 106 second was the lap barrier that Biffle ran on his qualifying time. And on lap 1, Biffle will lead. He'll score 5 bonus points and a great start to the race for the Biff. And for Roush Fenway as a whole, they're still 1, 2, 3 at the front of the field. Kurt Busch, though, again up to P2. And Martin now in 3rd. Derek Booth, Ashton G, thanks for tuning in also. Down into turn 1. A little wide in turn 2. Nothing major there for Biffle. Kurt Busch not really close enough to put a lot of pressure on him. Biffle needs a solid points day, though. It needs to get on the right path and on the right track. All these fantasy tracks we're going to this season will be for the first time on this game. So there was no real setup coming in, but Biffle was lucky enough to nail the setup out of the gate. I don't know that that's going to be the case on every road course necessarily, but here at Daytona, at least for the short run on fresher tires, he should be all right. He's going to have to keep the track position, though. Not sure how many pit stops they're going to have today. I can see definitely having quite a few pit stops considering the laps. This road course just less than 2 miles in length, I do believe. I think it's about the same distance as Sonoma, maybe a little more than that. Maybe a little more than 2 miles. No, the actual Daytona road course is like 3 miles and something, I believe. I think it's like 3.5 almost. Not today, though. Outsider Dark Crypto, Casey Kane fan, Mark DeMars, Alan Barkley, thanks for tuning in. A lot of people already in the chat. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. Get this Thursday night of racing underway. A bit quicker than lap 2 on lap 3 that time for Biffle. Car gets really light in that heavy braking turn 1 as well. Sure, we'll see some cautions throughout the course of the day today. So again, it's going to be on the right side of the pit strategy to not put yourself back in traffic. With no practice for Greg Biffle and only just hopping right into qualifying. Yes, he ran fast, but we don't know what this car is going to handle like in traffic. We don't know where the best spot is to pass cars. We have not done any of that. So although Biffle's looking good right now, he's just going to have to do whatever he can. And the worst part about being the leader is he's not going to be able to tell when other drivers are going to pit, because everything's going to end up happening behind him. He's going to be that first driver to make the choice. And I think you just have to stay out of the pits as long as you possibly can and pit under green flag conditions, because worst case scenario, caution comes out, the rest of the field pits during the yellow, you'll get back to the lead, because you're not going to go a lap down on a road course, especially one this big. This layout is 2.175. The actual layout is 3.61. I thought it was about 3.5, 3.6. That makes sense. 2.1 makes sense with this too. Thanks for that. I know the lap times are definitely quicker here with this layout. So I'd imagine it was shorter. Yeah, it's about a mile and a half shorter. Still, though, 142 laps. It's a 500-kilometer race for the Florida 500K. Biffle not known for being a great road course racer. In fact, never won a road course race in the NASCAR Cup Series. He does have a truck win at Portland, but never won a Busch or a Cup race in the Xfinity Series or Cup Series. Again, on a road course in his career, only once in the trucks. 42nd place finish, though, in the season opener at Daytona for Biffle after blowing an engine while leading with about 90 laps to go in the race. Unfortunately, only 4 drivers blew an engine that entire race, including 2 of the DEI cars of Michael Waltrip and Dale Jr. Holding on to about that 1.1 second lead. Not sure if there's anybody who might be trimmed out more for the longer run that didn't qualify too well and they're trying to make their way through the pack right now. Had 11 cautions in the season opening Daytona 500. Most in any series in any race in the early going of the season through speed weeks. Which I guess technically continues this week on the channel, considering we're still at Daytona for this race. Good feeling I'll win today. I really hope so. Definitely seems like we have the car. I'm surprised at how quickly I've become accustomed to this track. I do remember the layout itself, so I know where every corner is at based off of the NASCAR 05 game. That's the only good thing, is we have raced these tracks before, every fantasy road course we go to, and it's supposed to be based off the fact alone that ended up running all the fantasy tracks on the NASCAR 05 custom schedule season as well. 108.0 that last lap. Biffle pulled away about another 0.4 of a second from his teammate Kurt Busch. Yeah, I will say turn 1 not as sharp of a and harsh as the braking zone as what you would have on the actual Daytona road course compared to this one. Definitely a more scenic road course. The Daytona International Speedway. More of a look of the infield itself rather than on the actual Daytona road course. Worst fantasy track in any NASCAR game ever. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it's a bad road course. What makes it bad? That's what I want to know. I'm curious. What don't you like about it? I would take this infield road course over the the Texas infield road course. Texas one's kind of basic to me. It's only like 7 turns. Very short. Phoenix is a little more complex, at least. It's a lot more difficult. So I'll give it that. Yes, this is on PS2. And face cam is because I'm streaming on OBS. I'm using my laptop camera. Power slide into turn 1 that time. Not too bad for Biffle. Got the posted paint scheme on the car. We have the National Guard scheme for the 500, as well as the dual race. Biffle definitely setting the tone early. I will say that much. We'll get back to the start-finish line this time by, and we'll actually end up taking our first field pass of the race today. 4 laps at a time, of course, on a road course. Going to be a little while. With each of the other Roush Fenway drivers, we'll see where they're at in the early going of the race. Solid start for the Biff. Looks like there are 2 cars battling for second. I wonder if they're both the Roush Fenway Fords of Kurt Busch, potentially Mark Martin still. So they're about 1.7 to 1.8 seconds off the lead. Most basic track. I wouldn't say the most basic. Like I mentioned, I feel like the Texas road course is probably the most basic road course, fantasy-wise. We'll go to Matt Kenseth in the 17 car first. He is back in the 16th place position right now on lap 10. Biffle has that 1.7 second lead. Into turn 1 goes Kenseth. At least we get to race with cars in traffic this way. It's not going to be with exactly the 16 car, so the handling might be a bit different than if Biffle's in traffic, but at least we can race around cars this way for my own sake. We get to see some battling on the racetrack now, as I'm sure most of you guys want to see. Kenseth's going to try to outbreak the 77 car of Travis Quaffle, and that was a perfect job done. It was a lot more narrow of a gap than what I thought it was going to be. That really closed up quick as it got into that hairpin towards the back straightaway on the oval. Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car is the next one up ahead. Kenseth's going to try to hop in the draft of Johnson now on the tri-oval. A little bit of drafting help. Pulls in into turn 1. Johnson slides the front tires just a bit. Gap was not opened up enough, though, for Kenseth to try to make that pass in turn 2. Kenseth's going to go for it, though, in turn 3. Nope, he's going to back out of it. These corners are very tight. It looks wider than what it actually is. I will say it's a fairly flat road course for the most part. There's some banking in the middle of some of these turns, but there isn't some major like downhill slopes going into a corner, or uphill slopes like you would see at like a Watkins Glen or a Road America, for instance. It's almost similar to Indianapolis with how flat it is out of what you see in the Cup Series nowadays. Even Coda's got obviously some crazy elevation changes. Sterling Marlin, Jimmy Johnson both passed, though, that time by Matt Kenseth. That seems to be the passing zone of the racetrack. Not sure exactly what number turn that is. Might have to count this next lap to see exactly what it's at. But Kenseth has gained 3 spots in 2 laps. Trying to stay in the draft of Mike Bliss in the tri-oval. Get himself a little bit more speed in the tri-oval. Seems to be the one spot that Kenseth is lacking just a bit right now. Which is why he is mid-pack. Part of the reason why, at least. Is it too easy, or is it that I'm that good? I do have a good reputation on the road courses on this game, it seems. I haven't ran many of them, only 3 up until this point. This being the 4th today. Kenseth looking low under Mike Bliss. Going to try to maybe get around Bliss a corner earlier. And he is clear. Throws the block. Late into the braking zone. Dive bombs under Stewart. A little contact with Tony Stewart. Running the Daytona 500 champion up. With a little bit of contact, and Kenseth aggressively will take over the 11th place spot. A couple Cars side by side just up ahead. Kevin Harvick, Rusty Wallace. Carl Edwards trapped and tucked in line right behind him. Kenseth trying to get by the Evernham Dodge right now of Jeremy Mayfield as he looks to the inside. And he may be side by side. Mayfield thinking about throwing a block. Kenseth trying to side draft the 19. Kenseth on the bottom lane into turn 1. Locks the brakes up, makes the pass. That Kenseth into P10. One more lap, we'll swap to another Roush Fenway Ford. May go to Carl Edwards, who's just the next car up ahead of Kenseth. So we'll move Matt Kenseth up a handful of positions into the top 10. A spot to maybe get around Rusty Wallace. Contact is made. Kenseth got really loose. More of a time trial track than an actual race. That's kind of most road courses, though. That's how I look at it, at least. Kenseth's going to get by Wallace, though, for 9th. Another pass made for the 2003 NASCAR Cup Series champion. And we'll definitely be transferring to Carl Edwards this time by the start-finish line. Greg Biffle has led every lap for the pole so far. Lap 14 at the line. Edwards has a run on Harvick. Gonna pull out of line into turn 2, but Harvick with a block. Edwards anticipated it, tried to back the corner up maybe a little better. Bounce off the curb, gets alongside Harvick. Harvick with a bit of a block, an undercut by Edwards. Down to the inside, and they'll be side by side to the hairpin. Harvick down low, Edwards up high. Edwards got a little loose up there. Not going to be able to stay along Harvick. Harvick had the advantage down on the bottom lane, the shortest way around the corner. Bobby Labonte still defending his position on Jeff Gordon in the 24. Martin is still in the top 5. That means all the Roush Fenway Fords are running 9th or better. Harvick with a block, so Edwards just going to draft behind him instead in the tri-oval. They battle for position a lot heavier than the 2 cars in front of them. Harvick checked up a little early. It's contact from Carl Edwards getting into turn 1. Luckily, Harvick held on to the race car. Harvick alongside Edwards. Edwards on the outside through this set of corners, just so he could try to get to the bottom into the hairpin. That's why he's setting himself up in that situation. Edwards going to drive it in deep. Harvick does too, though, and Edwards going to boot the 29 car up out of the way with a bump and run. Up to P7 and 2 spots ahead of Edwards. Up for grabs yet. Gordon has not been able to get around Bobby Labonte, but he has ran directly behind him for the last few laps. Edwards looking low, and he's under Gordon in the tri-oval. Oh, wow, Labonte slid the rear tires. I don't know if he maybe got aero loose into turn 1 with the 99 behind him. There was no contact, and that checked up Gordon, who was also on the outside. When Labonte slid up in front of him, opened the door for Carl Edwards to move into P4. All right. Carl Edwards making some passes on the racetrack. Go one more lap with him after this, and then we'll transfer to Mark Martin in the 6 car next. Let me know down in the chat how many pit stops you think we're going to see today in this 142 lap event. I'm going to guess probably 4. I mean, if we could go 40 laps, it would be a 3-stopper, which I guess that's looking likely because these guys aren't halfway on fuel yet. 107.620 for Edwards that last lap. That was pretty quick. Size Z says 7. 7 pit stops. Dale Jr.'s having a solid run in 4th. Usually don't see Jr. run too well on the road courses. Edwards only 3 seconds off the lead. It looks more than that. It's kind of deceiving. Martin is in P3, by the way. So we'll go to Mark Martin in the 6th car, who is currently in 3rd. Rides right in line behind his teammate Kurt Busch. Pulling out of line potentially into turn 2. Get it back the corner up. Martin ended up with a top 10 finish in the Daytona 500. He's top 5 in points coming into this race with the bonus points scored in that one. Had a shot to win late, just couldn't quite get the job done. Busch and Martin might be closing in on Greg Biffle just a bit. Martin going to look to make the pass on Busch for 2nd place into the hairpin. Pass is going to be made for Mark Martin. Martin up to 2nd, trying to lead laps in the first 2 races of the season, as he has closed on Greg Biffle as well. Why not try to get our teammates a little bit of bonus point coverage here? How about Mark Martin having a good start to the year? Biffle will lead this lap at the line by inches. Martin down onto the apron. He's going to let Biffle go into turn 1. I'm going to be smart. I'm actually going to let Greg Biffle hold on to the lead here. These guys race too hard, and it might allow some other cars to catch up. Like Dale Jr., Carl Edwards. Jr., the only non-Roush Fenway Ford inside the top 5 right now. In 4th still, but Edwards is putting a charge on him right now for that 4th place position. Biffle slightly pulling back away again. Mid-race questions? Yes. Yep, at the halfway mark. Seeing a couple 3 stops, 5 stop. Probably gonna say 3 or 4. Obviously, cautions can dictate, you know, maybe potentially more cautions. Not as much on road courses. I don't know, we'll see. 20 laps in. Mark Martin's definitely got a good race car. Was on the back of the 16 car of Greg Biffle again. Quite a bit in these last couple of corners at that. One more lap with Mark after this next one. Biffle a lot harder into the hairpin. He's going to widen his arc out a bit more than Martin. So I have one more lap with Mark, and then we'll go with Kurt Busch at lap 22. Catching that share draft with his teammate Greg Biffle. Look at Martin closing in the tri-oval with the draft. Very light though into turn 1. Car was moving around quite a bit. Closes quite a bit in turn 2. That's probably Mark Martin's best corner. On the inside of Biffle into 3. Lets Biffle go, who is on the outside. Mark Martin being very patient with his teammate. He's had a shot to take the lead maybe twice now. Looking to just kind of keep Greg Biffle out in front. Biffle needs these laps led more so than The other two teammates right behind him. Biffle, the only one of which not in the top 10 in points right now. Could not make it to the end of that Daytona 500. And we'll go to Kurt Busch in the 97 car. Up next. Martin still sits in P2, Kurt Busch in third. Trying to get Kurt Busch back into second. And the cars that are 1, 2, 3 right back to where they qualified in the same running order. Dale Jr. and Carl Edwards are definitely closing in on the top 3. I'd say the top 5 a lot more bunched together than what it was probably a dozen or so laps ago. Kurt Busch challenging on Martin. May have a shot to get second place this time into the hairpin. Busch down to the inside, gonna outbreak the 6. All clear. Busch to P2. Kurt Busch closing on the 16 of Biffle still. He'll wiggle off the curb. Shared draft in the tri-oval, trying to pull away from Mark Martin just a bit. Leaving a lot of bottom open into turn 1, but a hold on to the lead with Kurt Busch right there. A wide entrance into turn 2 as well for the Biff. And we are racing as Greg Biffle for this season. We'll back to him after we drive as Kurt Busch for a few more laps. At max, Biffle is about 1.8 seconds ahead of Kurt Busch in second place at the time. The Martin took over second for a few laps. Now Kurt Busch back to P2 again. I was actually at Walmart. You reminded me with your Hot Wheels comment. I was at Walmart earlier to see what diecast they had. They actually had a couple Xfinity Series diecasts. They had a Josh Berry diecast. And they also had Dale Jr.'s Hellman's paint scheme that he ran at Martinsville earlier this year. They had a Blaney one there. Who else they have? They had Kyle Larson, William Byron diecast. They had some diecasts on the show. Nice to see. That was always my favorite thing as a kid, collecting those 164 diecasts, racing them on the floor. Oh, Mark Martin going a bit wide a couple times. Keeps it on the racetrack, though, luckily. He's putting a lot of pressure on Kurt Busch, trying to get around him for second again. One more lap with Busch at the start-finish line. Not as loose into turn 1 that time for Busch as what he was the lap before. He is right there on Biffle. Definitely putting a little bit of pressure on the 16. We're back out way early, though. Try to get Biffle a few more car lengths out ahead when we go back to Biffle at the start-finish line this time. halfway on fuel, lap 25. I wonder if it could be a potential 2-stop race. We were talking about a 3 or 4-stop race. It might be a 2-stopper. These guys can go 50 laps on a full tank of fuel. That's interesting. But again, Greg Biffle leads the Florida 500K at the Daytona road course right now. 25 laps complete. He's led all 25 from the pole. No caution so far, and we have not had our first set of pit stops. I guess the track being a little shorter in length than, say, the Daytona International Speedway, that's probably why we go more laps on the road course on fuel than on the 2.5-mile oval. Even with all the shifting and major braking going on. A little bit of drafting in the tri-oval, not so much for Biffle because he's been out in front the whole time, but we've seen it from other cars in the pack. Really the longest on throttle part of the racetrack. Almost constantly turning everywhere else around the track. Patrick Ellison, by the way, thanks for tuning in. Used to collect Mighty Morphine Power Rangers. Diecast Shining Time Station trains. Yeah, I had a bunch of Hot Wheels growing up. I had a lot of them. There were definitely some that were like hand-me-downs for sure, but I definitely had a lot of Hot Wheels, but it was the NASCARs that I obviously latched onto most. 1/64 scale NASCAR diecast. That's why I have so many of the Gen 4 cars, just because I used to get them all when I was a kid. I wish I would have started collecting the 1/24 scales before last year. I'd have so many more. Especially considering I've been going to NASCAR races as long as I have, and just never bothered to look at the tent vendors to see what they have. Definitely be getting a few more when I go to Talladega in a couple weeks. I didn't see the tent vendors at Kansas. I was trying to get a hold of Jarrett the Iceberg, because I know he goes to Kansas pretty often, and he was there last week. I didn't see him at the track, but I was going to ask him where the tent vendors were at so I could go see it. I got to the track probably 2.5, 3 hours before the race, but I didn't see it, at least in the vicinity. I didn't know if maybe it was on the back stretch, because I parked on the front stretch, so maybe it was like somewhere else around the racetrack that I was never at. I didn't want to walk all the way back there and have it not be there, even though I had the time to do so. I mean, it's a 1.5-mile racetrack. I didn't feel like walking 3 miles to try and find it in the hopes of not finding it, but I probably should have done it, looking back on it. At least I know where they're at Talladega. I'd never been to Kansas before, so that's why I didn't know where it was at. I got lucky with Atlanta. I was at Atlanta before, but it was before I started diecast hunting, because I was there in 2019. And we got dropped off by the tram, because we actually parked off of turn 2, I believe, there. And the tram took us like all the way around the back stretch, and we ended up like right in front of the main gate on the front stretch. And I happened to see tents when I was on the tram, or the trolley, like getting around the racetrack. I was like, we have to go back, because I saw tents. I think there might be diecast there, and sure enough there was. So if it wasn't for taking the tram, I probably wouldn't have found it at Atlanta too. So yeah, it was probably somewhere just like far away, one of the corners that I just happened to not be in at Kansas. Saying idea, what if Dover Motor Speedway had a road course? It would be nuts. That's too small of a track, though. It wouldn't be possible to, not only because it's a 1-mile track, but I think they have a horse track that they still actively use that's in the infield, a 1/2-mile horse track. So I feel like it would tear it up if they had cars racing on it. Like, they could have cars parked for the race weekend, that's one thing, but like in the infield and stuff, but they wouldn't be able to like race anywhere on that thing. That would just tear it up. It's a different kind of dirt than what you would have on like a standard dirt track. It would be like clay. At least I think the horse track's still active. It might not be. It may not have any horse racing there. Tents used to be on the front of the speedway. You talk about Kansas. Oh, that's right. You do live in somewhat close, within a few hours. I didn't even think of asking you. I didn't see them on the front, at least. I mean, obviously they have like the merchandise haulers that are at every track that travel like with the Cup Series for each team. Like, obviously that's pretty easy to find. Those are usually on the front stretch, except for like road courses. They may be in the infield somewhere, because you can usually go in the infield at most road courses with general admission. Indianapolis kind of the same way. They're in the infield there too. But outside of that, they're pretty much all in the infield, if not off the main front stretch. Pretty much every track. Yep, this is the Daytona road course. Not the same Daytona road course you were maybe used to the Cup Series racing at a couple seasons ago, but different kind of version of it. Still at the high banks at Daytona, nevertheless. They're in 2019 spring race. Yeah, I should have asked you before I went. I kind of feel bad for myself now. It's what I get, at least. For not thinking. We'll eliminate through the different camera angles for about a dozen laps for the first time today, as we are at lap 31. Greg Biffle dominant from the start. He hasn't had more than a 1.8 second lead, but he's just consistently running his own race. He's got clean air. We still don't know what this car is capable of in traffic, and hopefully we never find out, but I don't think it's necessarily that easy. Biffle tried to get a lot of laps led in here at the start of the season. He led 60 in the Daytona 500 before DNFing with an engine failure. Just blew up on him while he was leading on a great pit strategy at the time. It had him at about an 8-second lead. With 90 laps to go, engine expired. Car was just maybe a little too quick. He finished third in his dual race, so he's pretty confident that he could have had a good run. Guess it just wasn't meant to be in hindsight. Today, on the other hand, he's looking fast again. Maybe even more dominant. He had a better starting spot than when he did. 7th in the 500 with his 3rd place finish in the duel, plus qualified 11th for the 500 initially. Still a ways away from lap traffic, considering this road course is over 2 miles in length. And again, we're likely looking at a 2 pit stop race today, which, going at least halfway through the run without a caution come out, the fuel window for Biffle's right around 50 laps, give or take. As long as he can go at least 47 to 48 laps a run, it'll be a one-stopper. Or, sorry, two-stopper, not a one-stopper. 2 stops on a road course, that does seem legitimate, even with this one being a bit longer in distance. We started the race less than 40 minutes ago, so I mean, we're actually getting through these laps fairly quickly with the quick race pace at the start. Definitely helping. Watkins Glen is the Talladega of road courses. I'd probably say it's the most comparable, I guess, with just the high-rated speeds in general. A lot of long straightaways there. Again, we are running every fantasy track on this custom schedule season for the Cup Series. Another reason you would want to watch. Plus, it's a season-long points format. No playoff or chase like we saw in our first NASCAR 6 season, the Do It for Dale series. We're going to try to win it outright. Of course, I didn't even win it the first time. So, trying to win a Cup Series title in this game, as I failed to do so in the first season. Starting off pretty good in the Busch Series with Kyle Busch finishing in the top 10 in the first 2 races of the year on both super speedways as well. Daytona, Talladega, 7th at Daytona, 2nd at Dega. Hasn't gotten that win yet, but it's going well for him. Meanwhile, Greg Biffle's got a 2-second lead. It's his largest of the race in these first 33 laps. He's just cruising right now. Managing his tires well. He's not really having to push overly hard. No stress in those tires at all right now. On the green on the tire wear indicator yet. We'll go to the in-car cam next lap, by the way. I like this road course. I think a lot of the reason, though, is just because it's different. You know, it's not a road course I would run on any other game other than these EA Sports games. So it's nice to just go somewhere different on a non-oval, as we're going to do again many times this year. Because it's a road course, you don't necessarily want to be the last one to pit, but at the same time, knowing the fuel window in this race now, you don't want to pit too early and risk not being able to make it on fuel on just 2 stops, knowing that that is a possibility that that could happen today. I like how they do have seats in the infield portion of the racetrack too, as you can see right along those couple corners. Obviously on the main front stretch, if you're sitting high enough, you can probably see the whole racetrack. I'm going to ride around 90 to 100 miles an hour during a lot of those infield corners on the racetrack. Pretty flat, but not too hard and sharp of corners that you have to drop it down to some corners on hairpins at other tracks like 50, 60 miles an hour like out of Sonoma. I mean, even in that hairpin, he was right around 70 to 80. Mostly 80 all the way through. Season long points format is the way it should be. Definitely know many fans have been kind of lobbying for that in recent years. It's like one of the Roush Fenway Fords have a red X on them. Hopefully it's a scheduled pit stop. Maybe not, because there is some smoke in turn 2. And actually it does look like pit stops will start now. So there's smoke in turn 2, no caution. We still stay green. Remember how long it took for that first yellow to come out in the Talladega Busch race last night? We ended up having 4 of them. All within the stretch of about 30 to 40 laps of one another. Took over half the race for that first caution to come out. It does look like Matt Kenseth as well as Carl Edwards are in the pits first. Interesting to see if they could actually stay on the lead lap when they cycle off of pit road with how the field is spread apart right now. We'll see if we get any lap cars heading towards turns 1 and 2. To make things a little interesting. They're all leaving the pits right now. For those who are in, it's going to be close. And Biffle will have some cars. He does have one car underneath him right now. He's going to kind of let him go. So he's caught the tail end of the field, at least with some of the cars that have pit. So that's going to put him in traffic for the first time today. And they're on fresher tires than Biffle, so it might be harder for the Biff to try to get around him. Everybody pitting right now, it's definitely going to be a 3-stop race for them. Biffle's going to try to make it 2 and go as far as he possibly can on fuel. I don't think you can blame him for that, really. Not looking to make a pass on Andretti right now. Go to the hood cam this time by. Lead was about 2.6 seconds over second place. Now it's at about 2.3. Kurt Busch hasn't pitted yet. Him and Martin were second and third prior to the stop, so that's probably still the case as of right now, as they have yet to hit pit road. They stayed out that time by as well. Greg Biffle being about as patient as we saw Kyle Busch in the first half of the Talladega race last night as well. Just trying to keep himself out of trouble, really. Looks to the inside of Andretti. Got underneath him. Biffle also got to get around another lap car in the hairpin as well as he makes two passes. And we'll have two cars a lap down for the first time today. Biffle charging hard on the 49 car of Kenny Schrader. And he'll be looking low on Schrader off the exit of that final corner and working his way back onto the front stretch again. Kurt Busch is into the pits this time. Mark Martin will stay out. Biffle really low into turn one. Still side by side with Schrader. That's a tight corner to go side by side in, and they held on to it. And Biffle will slide clear of the 49. And a potential crossover, though, from the 49 of Kenny Schrader trying to get his lap back. Biffle trying to give him as much space as possible off the curb. Curious position right now in these somewhat older tires for Greg Biffle. Held on pretty well, though, side by side, all through the infield portion of the racetrack with Schrader. At least he's getting some confidence trying to pass some cars, and good job by the 16 keeping the wheel straight. As well as the 49 of Schrader, not making a mistake there either. Not that fast, so you would have to imagine the handling on that 49 car is not too well also. Ten-car chase is the best format for NASCAR. I beg to differ. I think if you were going to have any playoff format, past or present, outside of a season-long points championship, I'd say the current playoff format is the best one we have. And the main reason is because it takes regular season into consideration more than what any other chase format prior to it did. The original chase format, people make the argument that you can win 35 races, still lose a championship under this format. You can win the first 26 races under the current format, and you'd only have a 5-point lead going into the 10th, the last race of the season. At least now, going into the 10th, the last race of the year, if you're Chase Elliott, for instance, he's like 40 points above the cutoff line. That wouldn't be the case. And that's with 1 point per position, 5 points above the cutoff line when it was 5 points per position. That's literally only one spot ahead. I like that it did take the 10 most consistent drivers throughout the course of the season and put them in the chase when the pressure mattered the most, but the increments between them was just way too tight to give any sort of advantage to the driver who had dominated the season up to that point. It was like almost a leveled and equal playing field from 1st through 10th. At least now it's staggered 1st through 16th. Which is why I do give credit to this playoff format for that reason. I don't like the winning and you're in necessarily, but as far as, you know, the playoff points for winning, as well as winning stages, I'm down with that, honestly. If you're gonna have a playoff format. Go back to the far chase cam this lap. I don't think Biffle's gonna be able to make it all the way to lap 50, but he's got to stretch this at least one more lap here. He'll stay out this time by. Honestly, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If the last round wasn't a winner-take-all and there wasn't a win you're in, I think this would be the perfect playoff format for NASCAR. If you take the final 4 drivers and give them 3-race rounds just like the rest of the rounds, and the best one of those three based off the points they accumulated, you know, playoff points and everything that they have going into that last round, I think it'd be a perfect playoff format personally. That and drop it down to 12 drivers instead of 16, and I think it would be perfect. In my eyes, at least. Everybody is going to have it perfect in their own right. So Greg Biffle will pit this time. Not going to risk another lap on fuel, so it'll be 43 laps on this opening tank. It's about 31 seconds ahead right now. All the cars that were originally in the top 5, top 10 have pitted. Biffle has not. He'll be coming in this time, though. 70 miles an hour is the pit road speed limit at every track on this game, and easily Biffle is down to speed. A lot easier to get to pit road speed at Daytona in this configuration than the oval. No adjustments, 4 tires and fuel for Greg Biffle. First pit stop of the race. But yeah, if it's 12 drivers, then you only need 7 races for the playoffs as well, instead of 10. Or sorry, you would need 9 under my format, technically. Maybe 1 less race in the playoffs. Yeah, looking like a 3. I was thinking it might be 2. I was thinking 2 was going to be kind of odd. Now, Biffle's the longest to stay off of pit lane. So as he works his way onto the racetrack right now, he will still have the lead, but Kurt Busch and Dale Jr. have closed that gap immensely. It was over 2.5 seconds before any stops started. And Dale Jr. going for second alongside Kurt Busch right now as they're side by side. Now Jr. pulls back in line behind the 97. So Biff on cold tires right now, just trying to defend for a couple laps and then try to pull back away like he was doing there, especially in the second half of the run. Biffle's led every lap in this race so far at Daytona. Next scheduled stop will be at about lap 86 then. So lap 86 will be pit stop number 2 for Greg Biffle. Just under 100 laps to go. So then that third stop of the day would end up being at lap 129, which would be with 14 laps to go. So it is definitely a 3-stop race rather than a 2-stopper. So again, kind of have to go accordingly. If a caution comes out, gotta find that magic number right now. If we get a caution before we pit under green a second time, stretching the run out to lap 89 or lap 86, then we have to basically just run 14 laps from where we came out of the pits. So we'd have to go to lap 57. So if we make it to lap 57, then Greg Biffle will pit if we get a caution after lap 57 and before lap 86. That will be the plan. This is based off of my calculations with pit strategy. We're trying to get this race as accurate as we possibly can on strategy purposes. So we could try to, if we do have to sacrifice field position, at least we can make it on fuel 1 less stop if everybody else stays out. So we'd have a shot to get those spots back, and obviously attack on the fresher tires. But, I mean, Biffle's had a clean day right now at the racetrack so far, so he'd like to have to not be in traffic if he can help it. Everybody is back on the lead lap with everybody cycling through green flag pit stops as well. Biffle already pulling away from Earnhardt and Busch. Ten-car format. I'll read it when I get into the tri-oval. 10-car format. Same playoff point. So you're saying like 5 playoff points for win, 1 for stage win. Stage wins, race wins. No stage. Yeah, I do agree with that too. No stage cautions, personally. I think no stage cautions, but having stages would be the most strategy we'd ever see in a NASCAR race. before current, there'd be so much strategy. Because there'd be some drivers trying to take it as far as they can to that point, you know, on fuel and tires or whatever, trying to get the stage points, and some would pit earlier, try to gain track position under green flag conditions, knowing there isn't going to be a caution there, but they're going to sacrifice points that way potentially. Versus now, you know a caution's going to come out, so unless it's a road course, you can't do that. And because it's a road course, everybody pretty much does it. Except for a couple drivers that do try to go for that playoff point. But then you're sacrificing the win. At least this way you wouldn't sacrifice the win unless maybe a caution came out like in the middle of stops. Then it would probably cost you a win, but you know, that's the gamble you take. Thought I was in the position, what, to make it on 2 stops? I thought I was originally, but it doesn't look like it anymore. Not pitting that early. I think the start of green flag pit stops is right about lap 38, so they all pitted within about a 5-lap window of each other. Once a couple cars came in on their own, saw a lot more coming in after, and obviously Biffle, lap 43. Again, 5 laps after the first. Greg Biffle has led every lap so far today, even through green flag pit stops so far. Stayed out the longest, still came out with the lead, and now is pulling back away again. He had a lot of lap traffic around him from cars that were already pitted, but at the tail end of the field that were going a lap down there briefly. And again, they were able to get their lap back. Still decent ways left in this one, though. Definitely looking like Greg Biffle's race to lose today. Cautions come out in a weird way. I'm not going to count that against him necessarily, unless he just doesn't have a good restart necessarily. I'll put some of the blame on him, but you know, if I get on the wrong side of strategy, which I don't think I will, just because I pretty much have it straightforward. I know the lap we're going to pit if a caution does come out. We were close to having a caution right before green flag pit stop started. About a lap before they started, because there was some smoke in turn 2 from the lap before from somebody else in the field. There was no actual wreck that was indicated through all that. There is one driver out of the race right now. Looks like that is on pit road that had blown an engine. Have no clue who that driver is. Maybe that's what brought some of the smoke out right before those pit stops. Maybe he about got ran into or hit. There's only a couple places where there's actual runoff areas for those drivers to get out of the way if they are slow and have a mechanical issue. They're trying to limp it back into the pits. You can see the skid marks going up the track at turn 2, like somebody might have been out in the sand. Didn't completely stall out, so we stayed green. No way to make it 2. Yeah, we were about 4 laps short of being able to make it. 4 laps short per run to be able to make it on 2 stops. 4 to 5 laps short. So, definitely not going to be able to make it. Because you're talking about saving 4 to 5 laps a run, not like the entire race. That's not very likely. That's over 10 miles worth of fuel saving over a full 43 lap run without saving fuel. Definitely a 3.8 second lead though for Greg Biffle. Things are going well for the Biff early on. Craig Franklin, thanks for watching. See you in the chat down below. 18 likes on the stream. We've kind of stalled out about 17, 18 likes for most of this race now. Well over that many people, though, have been watching this entire race so far. So be sure to hit that like button. And again, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you have not already. Just over 3.2 thousand subscribers on the channel that we hit last weekend during our live race commentary of the Bristol night race for both the Xfinity and Cup Series. Live race commentary again on Sunday this weekend for the NASCAR Cup race at Texas. That will start at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And more NASCAR 6 action both tomorrow and Saturday to take you into that race day on Sunday. And that race will be on the USA Network once again, so if you can't watch it, definitely want to tune in. And if you can't watch it, still tune in. We'll watch the race together. You can listen to my commentary over the actual races. And we'll have fun as we usually tend to do. We'll alternate through the different camera angles one final time in today's race for about another dozen laps. And that magic number is right around 57 laps to go. We're getting close to it to be able to make this a two-stop race. I mean, ideally, Greg Biffle would like to lead wire to wire, but again, having to think big picture here, the big thing is, you know, maybe even pitting under green early as soon as that window opens in case a caution comes out that will give other drivers a track position late. You don't want to have to pass these cars. If you have to gain track position on pit strategy, it's one thing. It's going to be a lot easier to do than just flat out passing everybody, especially on a road course where we know that pretty much all day today it's been just that one corner in the hairpin that has been the easiest to pass than any other on the racetrack. I mean, even turn one, which is a hard braking zone, is just so narrow. I went through there side by side a couple times, but no passes were actually made for position in that corner at all today. Mainly just the hairpin on the back straightaways. Been about it for passing, at least from what we've seen. Not only has Greg Biffle on some lap cars, but on some of the other Roush Fenway Fords throughout the field as well. Alan Williams, thanks for tuning in. Ash versus Leon final? I have no clue who that is. Is that like a fight of some sort? Sounds like a fight to me. Yeah, 30 people watching. Still only 18 likes. And hit that like button if you haven't already. Helps these streams out a ton. Biggest lead, by the way, of the day so far for Biffle at 5.5 seconds. There is no pressure on him right now to run some consistent lap times. If you count the 60 Biffle led in the Daytona 500, it is possible, if Biffle does go wire to wire today from the pole, that he would end up leading over 200 laps in the first two races combined this season on a super speedway and a road course. That's impressive when you consider the fact that Biffle never won a road course in his Cup career. Only one super speedway win, which was his first at Daytona, but just the fact of leading that many laps at Daytona is impressive of itself. And obviously trying to go for that first win of the season in the early going yet. Matching Tony Stewart is the only driver to win a race, as Stewart won the Daytona 500. Stewart also won a dual race at Daytona, as he won dual race number 2. Kenseth we saw won dual 1. So those are the other winners, just the non-points races. Another reason Tony Stewart had such a great speed week, not only won the 500, but ran well in that race. Had a top 10 in the Busch race at Daytona, too. And we saw him in the back half of the top 10 in the early going of this race during our first field pass a while back. Favorite NASCAR driver and least favorite? Yeah, again, I don't really have a least favorite. Obviously, my favorite overall is Ryan Blaney. Biffle was my favorite growing up, but I'd probably say I'm more of a Blaney fan now than what I ever was a Biffle fan. I'd probably say for, I mean, least favorite, if I'm talking like when I was a kid and stuff too, it was probably Busch growing up, but now I just find him entertaining. And I know why he's good for the sport. It's a little different when you're younger. I haven't talked to my grandpa since Busch made the announcement he's going to RCR. I wonder what he thinks about that, being an Earnhardt fan all those years and not liking Kyle Busch. He's probably going to have a newfound respect for him, I feel like, just because of that. And honestly, him in the 8 car, I'm curious to see at the track if he's going to get as many boos racing for RCR as he, you know, does now. He's not going to be in a Toyota anymore, and that's kind of been some of the gripe, I feel like, with fans. Older fans, necessarily. So, you know, I'm kind of curious. Maybe it's like half and half. True Assassin 86XX for tuning in. Race is making you feel old. And you're 36. So why is that? Is it because it's long? I don't blame you for that. Or is it because it's the 2005 season? Maybe a little bit of both. Definitely, not all, but a lot of the fantasy tracks are going to be some longer races. Some of the bigger and longer ones are more towards the end of the season, kind of dreading wanting to do, like Dockside and especially Old Spice Speedway on the Cup Series side of things. I like those tracks, but man, I mean, you're 500 mile on a road course, just, I mean, that's just overkill. That race is going to take 5-6 hours, and I'm glad I have a couple months before I do it. I'm glad it's going to be during the off season where I'm not going to be as exhausted maybe to do it in the first place, but off season meaning like the real NASCAR off season, because we only have 7 weeks left. But yeah, that's it's gonna be interesting. Can't wait for the challenge. Maybe we'll clinch the championship by then. It's the second to last race of the year. I mean, maybe I clinch the title before that. We don't even have to run the race. I'd like for that to be the case, for that reason only. But knowing that that's the last race before the season finale at Talladega, though, the pressure to just finish that race, it's about a half mile shorter than this, so things are going to be a lot more compacted together. It's more narrow. It's faster. A couple of longer straightaways. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. Santiago Kid, thanks for tuning in. Nope, no cautions at all. I haven't wrecked myself either. I haven't wrecked at all in the Cup Series. Not the dual 500. I just blew an engine, unfortunately, while leading. And then this race, obviously, haven't either. So it's been a clean Cup Series season. Really clean season in every series. Ricky Craven, I got caught up in the big one with there. But the Busch and Cup Series, I haven't, like, spun out, wrecked, or anything. So fairly clean there, and that's through some super speedway races. Only super speedways until tonight, at least for the Cup. Which series has been only super speedways? Why Dale Jr. can't win the championship? What, because of road courses? He's actually running good today. I don't know how, but he was in third after green flag pit stops. Even before that, he was pretty much running fourth or fifth the entire time. What do I want them to do to Texas? As good as I'm skeptical on a short track until NASCAR fixes the short track package. I definitely am sold on the fact that I don't want another super speedway. I think Atlanta giving us 6 a year, that's plenty. Especially if the safety concerns of the next gen car. I think it's just too much of a risk, and we're just already kind of pushing the issue, I think, with safety, especially over the last couple years, but leading into this car this year, just the timing of it doesn't seem good. You know, look at what's going on with Kurt Busch. He's going to miss, assuming he is going to be out the rest of the year. even if he comes back next year, he's going to miss almost half the season this year with the same injury he sustained in the middle of the summer in July in Pocono. So that's a shame. We definitely don't want anybody getting maybe even more seriously injured than that, which it doesn't really get too much worse than a concussion when you consider that affects the brain. But I think you guys all know what I'm kind of talking about leading with that comment. But, you know, I'd almost rather them just kind of reconfigure the mile and a half that already is. They're cutting down grandstands, but I do think that they should do that anyway. I think Texas has the biggest grandstand as far as seating capacity than any other mile and a half or non-super speedway or Bristol on the circuit. And obviously they don't sell as many tickets as even like a Kansas, which was darn near sold out a couple weeks ago when I was there, and that place seats like, what, almost 50,000? So, you know, cut the grandstand seats down, reconfigure the mile and a half. I mean, the big issue with the mile and a half we currently have at Texas, if they just would have repaved it the way it was, by now it might be putting on at least somewhat decent races, especially with the next-gen car, but because it's so flat in turns 1 and 2, it's one groove track there, and you have to lift so much that by the time you get into 3 and 4, you're near full throttle even with the next-gen car, because you have to back the car up so much in turns 1 and 2, so that creates pretty much it harder to pass in 3 and 4 despite the banking and the degrees of banking there. And in 1 and 2, it's a one groove track, you know, with and without PJ1 or resin, because if you put the resin down, everybody's running in the resin. You can't run the bottom because the resin or PJ1 is too overpowering. But without it, then everybody's just hooked right around the inside lane. So that's pretty much the problem with current Texas and why it doesn't work no matter what package or what car you use. So I think you just need to make it a symmetrical mile and a half as far as, you know, the degrees of banking at the corner. If you want to keep the D-shaped oval the way it is, I think that's fine. If you maybe, with taking the grandstands out, maybe they take away the D-shape, make it more like a homestead. You know, obviously I think most people would be all right with that too. I'd be all right with even making it a flat mile and a half just because it would be more unique than any other track on the circuit. Texas is unique for its own right as far as every other mile and a half on the circuit, but it's not for the good reasons. We'll try to make it a good reason, I feel like, or they should try to make it a good reason if they do try to make it different this time around. Obviously, you're never not. You can only test so much out with data and analysis until you actually put cars on the track for the first time, and I think that was the big thing that went wrong there. The only thing that you could say went wrong and that they should have known that this was coming with the current Texas configuration is because it's very similar to how Kentucky is now. When Kentucky got reconfigured, Kentucky was not that bad of a track when it had its old asphalt. It was, you know, symmetrical as far as the degree of banking in the corner, but they changed it, and now it's not the case. A track like Phoenix can get away with that, having very different corners, one flat, one slightly banked, because it's a short track. So basically hard. It's only 1 mile, so the speeds aren't going to get up. Plus, you have all the apron to work with on the dog leg, so that creates a different line on the front stretch as well. You can shortcut it. You can choose not to. That's why the restarts are as entertaining as it is. So that's why it works with a track like Phoenix and not so much with like a mile and a half like a Texas or Kentucky the way it is right now. I'm not a scientist by any means, but, you know, just my almost entire life, at least my entire life, what I can remember of watching racing and gaining analysis that way, and watching oval racing with NASCAR, that's kind of my analysis on why those two tracks, in my personal opinion, don't work. No matter the car. Well, halfway on fuel during the run right now for Biffle, as we are at lap 64. We'll go back to the far chase cam for the rest of the race when we get back to start-finish line this time. Still caution-free, and just shy of the halfway mark yet, as we still have about 7 more laps till we get there. And then we'll have tonight's trivia question on the channel. And because I didn't do a trivia question in the Busch race at Talladega last night, and because the Cup Series has only had a couple races on the Daytona road course, it's going to be a Talladega track fact question for tonight. Yep, thanks for tuning in. Want to go fast? Oh yeah, I think that's why we're all here. all getting that speed sensation in one way, shape, or form tonight. Virtually, at least. Fastest lap of the race for Biffle that last time, by the way, 107. A minute 7 second, .537 second lap time. I don't think he ran a 107.5 at all yet in the race until just then. And it's about midway through the fuel and tire stint. Still obviously in clean air as he has been for the majority of the race. Outside of that very brief moment he was in lap traffic. He's about to catch his first lap car under non-green flag pit stop conditions. So within a few laps, he'll get there. He's got an 8.4 second lead. He drew that lead out to about 8.5 seconds, and then it kind of stalled out over the last dozen laps or so since then. So he definitely runs a bit better on the shorter part of the run than the longer part, but he still manages his tires well enough throughout the course of the run that obviously he's able to maintain this gap still. Lap traffic might slow him down just a bit, or may get through it better than everybody else. We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, 67.537. 107 meaning a minute 7, not 107 seconds. Wow, 107.285. I don't know where the speed's coming from out of Greg Biffle right now, but he is booking it. That was almost 3/10 quicker than the lap before. About 2.5 tenths. Almost to the dot. What a lap. A set of laps. He was almost a half second quicker than second place that last lap. We don't know if those cars back there are battling either. Closes on Scott Riggs in the hairpin. Not quite to him yet. Good lap going for Greg Biffle this time by as well. Closes on Riggs. Little undercut on the 10. Gets alongside. And he'll be able to clear Scott Riggs in the tri-oval. .107.4. I mean, those last 3 laps all in the 107.5s. 67.5s. Right, 2.1 mile road course, that is booking it. More clean air in front of Biffle after quickly getting around Scott Riggs as well, as he's going to have a few more laps before he catches another lap car or two. Favorite NASCAR track for each type of track? That's a good question. Obviously, I think it's well documented. Bristol is my favorite short track. So I go Bristol. I'd say Daytona as far as super speedway, and it's solely based off the fact that they have the Daytona 500. I like Talladega more as like an overall racetrack, but the prestige of the 500's got to put that up there. Intermediate track is tough. As far as being at the track in person, I'd say Darlington. If I'm looking at my favorite mile and a half, I'd probably say Homestead. I haven't been there yet in person. Kansas is up there, though, after being there in person this year. I've always liked Kansas. It was probably my second favorite, right behind Homestead right now. Chicagoland, honestly, was my favorite before it went off the schedule, but I'd say currently on the schedule, Homestead. Of the tracks I've been to, Kansas. Darlington, in my personal opinion, is my favorite intermediate. It's not quite a mile and a half, but so that's why I kind of mentioned those other, mile and a half tracks just for the sake of it. But I'd probably say Darlington's my favorite intermediate. Favorite road course, going Watkins Glen, hands down. It was my favorite growing up. Obviously, there's more on the schedule now. I've been to a lot of the road courses, both new and old, and I would say that is definitely up there. I do like Indianapolis overall, mainly for the Indy 500, not so much NASCAR, but even NASCAR, when I was there for the Brickyard 400, you just feel the prestige of these bigger races when you're there in person. Outside of the 500, you can kind of feel that through your TV screen. It's hard to feel that with like the Southern 500, the Coke 600 until you're actually there, the Brickyard 400. When you're there, you can definitely feel it more, both with just the pre-race festivities. There's a lot more than just a traditional, race at Michigan or, Las Vegas during the season before the playoffs. Like you don't really feel that. At least until, like, the flyover happens in the national anthem. That gives me chills every time, so that usually is like, alright, let's go racing. Even if I'm at, like, you know, a track that I'm like, alright, you know, it's kind of middle of the season. You know, why am I here other than to, you know, just see the race at this track for the first time because I haven't before? That always gets me hyped. 2022 DLC coming to Heat 5. Happy NASCAR 21. Sucks, yeah. I agree. I'll be having the update for the NASCAR 21 ignition side of things. And October 6th, mark your calendars. Good chance we're going to be having a live stream that night. And run the Daytona 500 on our first season there. And you guys will get to fan vote who I'm going to race as for that season as well. So I'll have polls in the chat once we get closer to the time of it happening. We're still a few weeks away yet. Those will be in the community tab when the time happens as well. So be sure to have that notification bell set, so you don't miss your chance to vote on who you want me to race as for our NASCAR 22 season. Biffle on the inside of John Andretti right now, holding the inside line well, but he's going to be on the outside into the next corner. Well, contact with Andretti. He forced that 14 car down, and that kind of knocked him up into the 08 of Shane Meal as well. Once he got into the 08, he couldn't get off of him. Looked like I was repeatedly hitting him intentionally. That wasn't the case. I kind of got stuck on him, and every time I'd get off of him, I'd get loose and make contact again. "70 laps complete. Still no caution. We'll be halfway home at the start-finish line this time by, and that will mean it'll be time for tonight's trivia question when we do get to that point." Think about Trey Lance out for the season. It stinks to see anybody get hurt, but, you know, young you know, player or athlete in any sense, like, you're never going to know what their full capability could have been, and that kind of stinks. Look at Robert Griffin III, I think, is a big factor in that. Wins the Rookie of the Year, tears his ACL in his first playoff game in his rookie season. It was never the same. It's hard to label guys as like a bust when something like that happens, in my personal opinion. In any sport. You know, even NASCAR. Oliver in the 175 car, one of the fantasy drivers in the field today. Blocking Biffle in the tri-oval. Biffle just kind of running with him. Now, because Biffle's led every lap so far, and he has led to the halfway mark, that means he will clinch 10 bonus points for the most laps led, but still 2 pit stops out from the finish yet, and obviously a ways to go so far. Well, less than an hour and a half in. So, without any cautions, we're pacing to get this race in less than 3 hours. So, I guess, even with 142 laps on a road course, we're probably going to get this in between the 2.5 to 3 hour mark, which is an average cup race. So, if not slightly above average. So, you know, distance wise, I guess it's not as long as I originally thought it was going to be. So I'm thankful for that. I was almost dreading running tonight's race for that reason. And that reason alone. We'll contact. 175 car up off that final corner. Biffle's going to have him cleared, though, going into turn 1. Challenges to the inside of the 22 of Scott Wimmer in turn 2. Not easy to pass. Biffle's had a tough time trying not to make contact, even with the slower cars in the field, when putting these guys a lap down. Even with a calm, big lead for Biffle, again, 2 pit stops. Got to make sure you don't speed. Got to execute there. Pit crew's got to not make a major mistake. But then, again, a caution just bunches the field back up again. So then you're going to have to survive a restart. We don't know what that's going to be like because we haven't seen one yet today. And now that we have some cars a lap down, the inside line is going to be occupied by lap cars as well, because we've gone far enough into the race caution free to start that there will be cars a lap down when that is the case. So that'll be interesting to see as well. Again, lap 86 will be the second stop of the day for Biffle. He's got the most bonus points. Just ran a 107.399. Pretty good lap there. Christopher Jimenez, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, broken ankle. Tough break, for sure. I didn't realize you were the one that asked that question. Sorry for not shouting you out originally there. Yeah, broken ankle. It's a good thing that the 49ers didn't trade and couldn't trade Garoppolo throughout the offseason like they probably wanted to. That way their season isn't a complete loss because, I mean, obviously Garoppolo's made some deep playoff runs. Led the Niners to the Super Bowl one year too, so. You know, say what you will about him, but he knows the offense. And I don't think the playoff hopes are by any means shot for the Niners this year. Best backup in the league to have in this kind of circumstance, given the situation too, with what team he's playing for. It may be a little different if he was maybe on another team and something like that happened. He'd have to learn the system on the fly. But because he does know the system, what they're capable of, obviously the Niners have a great defense. They'll be alright. Happened in Dale Jr. Series, we're done with it. We finished it. Do for Dale Series is done for the Cup and the Busch Series. Won the Busch Series title, finished 6th in the Cup Championship, unfortunately, so did not win the season there. Had a shot for the title going into the last race. 6 drivers had a chance, and we ended up finishing 6th of them, unfortunately. Even on older tires, though, Biffle's still running some good laps. He's got about 11 more laps till he hits the pits. Locked the tires up in turn 1 a couple times, trying to get the car to turn. So break it a little earlier in that corner. That's all he's going to have to do to try to adjust it. Try not to burn his tires off too much at the end of the run. Especially in the likelihood that other drivers will pit before him. Cars One Boy, thanks for tuning in. Next question in the chat is going to be the trivia question. Sorry I didn't give it to you guys a couple laps ago, so almost forgot. Tonight's trivia question on the channel will be a Talladega track fact, and it will be for the Busch Series because, again, I ran the Busch race there last night and did not ask you this question, so I do have it ready to go for tonight's live stream. Trivia question is, what year was there the most lead changes in a Talladega Xfinity Series race? So that will be the question tonight. What season did the NASCAR Xfinity Series have their Talladega race with the most lead changes? I wasn't sure if Jeff Green was going to pit there. Biffle was extra low off turn 4 just to make sure he wasn't going to. There were other cars in front of him pitting. lot better in the braking zone that time. That was even being alongside another car. Biffle clears Jeff Green with a clean pass in turn 1. Green trying to cross him over, though, to the inside in turn 2. Biffle's going to let him go in 3. Oh, contact. Will bounce off the curb. Well, more contact there. Jeff Green making this hard on Greg Biffle. No contact in the hairpin that time. Biffle gets right back around the 43. He's obviously faster than him. Green hasn't pitted yet, so they're on fairly equal tires. And Biffle's had the dominant car of the evening. It is not 2002, not 2015, 14, or 2003. I haven't seen the right answer yet. You guys have until the start of lap 85 to answer the trivia question. If nobody gets it before the start of lap 85, then I'll give you guys the answer. Michael Turner got it, 2011. I figured somebody was going to get it. That was the tandem racing era, and that was also around the same time period where we saw a bunch of lead changes in the Super Speedway races for the Cup Series. So 2011 was the correct answer. 56 lead changes in a 113-lap Talladega Xfinity Series race is the record for the Xfinity Series for the most lead changes in a Dega race. It might be the most in Xfinity Series history. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it's definitely the most at Talladega. So congrats, Michael, getting the question correct there, 2011. Some of the Roush Fenway Fords pit, but not all of them. Biffle's about 6 laps away from his stop yet. Again, lap 86 is what we're looking at currently at lap 80. And again, still 2 pit stops out from the finish. We've only had 1 so far. Thing is, though, too, it's going to be harder and harder for a caution to come out the more spaced out the field gets. At least that's what I would think logically. Unless you're towards the end of the run, obviously, if you have somebody out there battling for position on the racetrack, which I'm sure in a 43-car field that there would be somebody out there potentially battling for position. That could potentially end up being the case. I don't even think Biffle wants to make it to lap 86 this time. He has not stretched his fuel tank out as well as he did on the last run. Still going to be a 3-stopper, but he's definitely not going to go to lap 86 like he did earlier. Which may make it a little bit different on him on exactly when he ends up making that final stop then. If a caution comes out at any point in time within a potential window to make it to the end, because it's looking like he is only going to be able to go a couple more laps and then he's going to have to pit. And honestly, Biffle will stay out this time. He's going to pit the following time at lap 82. So that means he is only going to go 39 laps on this run. The run before that, he went 43. Somewhat similar to the actual Cup race that we had in the Daytona 500 as far as fuel and tires. Hit that inside wall going into 1. That's the first time I've hit a wall today. Alright, Biffle will be getting fresh tires this time by, and he shouldn't have to worry about that again. At least not for a little while. I did that on my first qualifying lap. I'm surprised I never did that up until lap 82. I had a good run going without hitting the wall. Alright, well, here comes the plan. Greg Biffle will pit this time. Again, 70 miles per hour is the pit road speed limit. He was at about 123 miles an hour before he tried to get the car to slow up. And into the pits he goes. Oh, no! I spammed through it. I really hope we're going to get a full tank of fuel in here. I don't know if that's going to be the case. He's going to get some fuel in it. It'll be 4 tires and fuel for Greg Biffle. I really hope. And now a mistake from the jack man. Having problems trying to jack the right side of the race car up. So this could be a slow stop for Biffle. He had a double-digit second lead over second place, though. So I think even with the mistake on pit road, it's still going to be a quick stop. Or not a quick stop, but it'll be a stop in which he'll be able to hold on to at least a somewhat reasonable lead. As he'll be back out on the racetrack, 4 tires and fuel. I'm not sure if they got the car full of fuel. As Biffle morphs out in lap traffic, about a 13.5 second lead is now down to just under 10 seconds as he's up to speed midway through the racetrack. And so that lead got cut down 4 seconds with a slow stop. 17.8 seconds on that pit stop for Biffle. That was definitely lengthy. Still going to be patient, though, in lap traffic for the most part. He's made contact here and there. It's another reason why he doesn't want to risk a caution potentially coming out. Only down to about 60 laps to go in this race. Good run for Biffle. Trying to get to the inside of Terry Labonte, and he is there. A side draft on the 44 Kellogg Chevrolet. And Biffle should get around him on the front stretch. And he'll clear him easily. Kyle Petty going side by side into turns 3 and 4 through the S's. Into 5, still side by side as Petty and Boris said. Boris said really good on the road course. Thought he was going to maybe have a better season, but he's kind of struggled right now. He's on the inside lane on this next corner. He holds clear of Petty, who could not make the pass after pulling alongside of said. Biffle going way down to the bottom. 3 wide. There's contact between all 3 cars. First time we've seen 3 wide today. It definitely didn't work. After the contact, Biffle drives on. Said and Petty are side by side still again, but a lot more clean air in front of the 16 again, though, also. So they side draft each other now. 10.5 second lead at lap 85. You run into these races from time to time for sure. Kind of just long, drawn out. Pretty straightforward. It's a long 36 race custom schedule season. I'm sure we'll have some enticing racing going on throughout the year. The Daytona 500 was pretty good for the most part. And this one, just a long green flag run to start because it's a road course. Have gotten so spaced out. And a longer road course at that. All it takes, again, is one caution to change things. It's still one stopper to the end yet as well. Guess if you were going to have a mistake on pit road, glad it was the second stop, not the final one, and glad that obviously Biffle had a big enough lead. It didn't cost him too much time. He's right back to about 11.2 seconds ahead. Not his largest lead of the race by any means. All played Dirt Racing game too. I want to get that World of Outlaws game if it's available for PS4. I haven't really looked into it. I think that comes out in the next, I think sometime next week if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to play that on the channel. Maybe do a season or 2 of it. I don't know that I'd live stream every game or every race. I may live stream some races of that game. Just because it is a NASCAR-oriented channel, but I'll probably do some stuff, especially with the off-season coming around the corner. That's what I did last year. Play the World of Outlaws 2002 during the off-season to give some racing content that wasn't NASCAR-related just during the off-season. So I'll probably end up doing that with that game that just will release here sometime soon. I didn't get a pre-release of it, so I do not have it. I think there were some people that got pre-releases like last week of the game. So I've seen a little bit of gameplay of it. I'd like to get it though. I think it is compatible for PS4. I know it is for the next-gen consoles. I'm assuming it is on PS4 also. Have your eyes on it? Yeah, for sure. iRacing's behind it, and I don't know like how their dirt racing is. I know iRacing's gotten a lot of praise with the asphalt racing on there. If it's anything like that as far as like competitiveness and stuff, I'm sure it'll be a good game. If I try doing a gaming video, I have of like, I've done it a couple times before. It doesn't get as many like eyes on it or views as the live streams, so that's why I like the live streams better. Well, that and I like the live streams because when I'm doing a full race, it makes it feel more authentic, as realistic as possible, especially with the real commentary. And obviously I get to get your guys' feedback as I'm doing it. It's hard to do long races without a chat, because in an instance like tonight's race, I might have fallen asleep while driving. But at least I'm able to like talk and keep it going and keep some conversations. You guys have asked a couple of really good questions in the chat and just random NASCAR stuff tonight. So Blaney Crew got a big penalty. Well, it's... Yes, they did at a crucial time of the season, but it isn't any worse than, you know, the other drivers. It's just the timing of it couldn't be any worse compared to other drivers who have had the penalty this year for the rolling out of the box. I know some people have argued that, well, he didn't leave pit road, but I agree with the penalty. I don't agree necessarily with the, you know, the 4 race suspensions and all that, but there definitely should have been a penalty warranted for that under the rule book and how they've called the penalty so far this year, which have been inconsistent, it seems like at times. But I mean, that the tire rolled off his car as he was leaving the box, yes, and he wasn't that far out of the box, but it did roll into another team's crew, and there's a jack on the wall because, you know, for whatever reason that there was a jack on the wall. Maybe there was a team that was going to pit potentially at some point in time. Whatever the case was, there's a jack on the wall. It knocked the jack literally off the wall and kind of shot it into the pit box. That's dangerous. You can't have that happen. And so it's good for NASCAR to step in when there's a penalty. I don't know so much. I can understand why the crew chief is penalized in that kind of instance because, you know, it's his team. He could always, you know, say, like, hold up, you know, he's got the radio, because I'm sure he does in an instance where the team's trying to call him back, and, you know, maybe the driver can't see the team trying to say, whoa, don't go yet when the jack gets dropped, and crew chief, you know, could say that, but it is kind of a bang thing at the same time. I think the penalty is definitely too steep. I think, honestly, if you are going to suspend, I'm not completely opposed to suspending maybe a crew chief for 1 race. 4 is a little excessive in my eyes. If you're going to fine him $100,000, I think a 1 race suspension's alright. You're fining him $100,000 and suspending him 4 races, which I'd assume would be without pay as well. And I'm alright with the, you know, the tire changer and the jackman getting suspended too. The jackman not as much as maybe the tire changer, because the tire changer, like, you know if you got the lug nuts secured or not as you're installing it. But when the jack drops maybe a little early, which I guess in a sense maybe that's why the jackman is, you know, somewhat responsible for it. If the jack drops early, you know, that miscommunication on the team for sure. But it's a dangerous, you know, penalty. Or it's a dangerous thing to have happen. I know some people are saying, well, you know, go back to the multiple lug nuts. That's definitely something that Goodyear can do. I think there's been a lot of things that have gone wrong with Goodyear at this next-gen car so far. Obviously, NASCAR's done some things that, you know, haven't been the greatest this year, whether it's, you know, calls or even just the car and the package itself, getting it, you know, ready for short tracks. We've seen issues with it. As far as a single lug nut deal, I don't know how much input NASCAR had for it other than Goodyear, because the tire itself is a bit, or the car itself, I believe, is a tad bit wider, if I'm not mistaken, which is the reason why they went with one lug, because the axle itself, or the axle or something was wider on the car, that is the reason why they had to go with a bigger tire. And with a bigger tire, they probably weren't going to be able to have 5 lug nuts. You're probably looking at least 6 lug nuts, who knows, maybe 7, and that's why they went with 1, because other motorsport series have 1. Obviously NASCAR is different, but at the same time, if other motorsport series are able to do it, you know, maybe there's a chance that NASCAR could do it, especially with this racing more like a sports car type body, and, you know, most sports car series has 1 lug nut. So I understand, you know, what the meaning and the intent was behind it. The execution just wasn't there, and that it's again something they should have done more tests with, and they had a whole extra year and they didn't do it. And I understand the season's more tightly condensed and packed together, with less off weeks than what we might have seen in years past, you know, 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. But at the same time, you know, there is a 3-month off season, and yes, they tested at times during the off season. I can understand not wanting to test every week, but how many tests did they have during the off season? Like 3 or 4? 3 or 4, like 1 or 2 day tests? They could have done a lot more tests. That's all I'm saying. And we probably wouldn't have a lot of the issues we've had this year. Hate to see the growing pains we've had at the start of the season continue on this far into the season. And a lot of new problems have really come out of seemingly nowhere, with like the fire. The major fires that we've been seeing with the next gen car have really only been, and we haven't seen any in the last 2 races, but we saw like 4 or 5 of those kinds of fires from the middle of summer to the end of summer. So it's definitely concerning in that, right? Just kind of random new issues like that. Some issues have been fixed, but there's still a lot of work to go yet. It's been kind of stuck behind the 42 car of Casey Mears. Nice handful of laps. No other car really right around the 42 of Mears currently. If we're going to pull out a line, looking to make the pass on him in the hairpin. And he'll do just that. We do have 50 laps to go in this race. Fuel window going to open up right around 38 to 43 laps is kind of the window we've seen today. If we went 43, went 39 on the first 2 runs. No cautions, obviously, during either. So it just kind of varies. Make another SRX game. It's going to be interesting. So we'll take our second and final field pass of the race now. We'll go with Matt Kenseth in the 17 car first. He is currently in 10th. And Mark Martin in 9th place, actually right in front of him. So we'll take this first field pass of the day. Sorry, second field pass of the day. Kenseth's got a run in the trial. He's on the inside of Mark Martin for 9th place. With the 17 and the 6 looking for back-to-back top 10s to start the year. The slide of the rear tires, but Kenseth rather still going to clear Martin. Bobby Labonte for a spot up ahead as well. A 15-second lead, though, for Biffle. And again, about 49 laps to go. Patrick Chatterley, thanks for tuning in. Consider pitting Biffle when the window opens. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I would like to go a little bit past it only because I'm not as comfortable with 43 laps as I once was, considering I only went 39 in the last one. I'll probably wait till we get to about 36, 37 to go, somewhere in there, just to be safe. But yeah, you don't want to get stuck behind every lead lap car, because we have had lap traffic today, but we haven't had as much as normal. Kenseth drafting with Labonte, pulls out a line through turn 1 into turn 2. Labonte with a block on Kenseth. Labonte was not clear. When throwing that block, I don't think Kenseth appreciated that. Moving to the inside of the 18 car in the hairpin. 18 really squeezing Kenseth. Kenseth clipping the grass a bit to get around Labonte. Kept 2 tires on the asphalt though. Labonte was racing Kenseth hard. We're under 50 to go though, so these guys not as willing to maybe give up positions like they were at the start of the race. Definitely a lot more vital now. The mid-race question was Talladega track back. And it was who or what year did the Xfinity Series have the most lead changes in a Talladega race? And it was 56 lead changes in 2011 was the answer. That was the mid-race question. I think there's a shot Kenseth could get inside the top 5 before we swap to somebody else. One more lap after this. Gonna have to get around Tony Stewart and Kevin Harvick pretty quickly. He's looking on the inside of Stewart. Stewart runs him tightly. Some contact that was made. Nevertheless, Kenseth makes his way through. Kenseth down alongside Kevin Harvick in the 29. Quickly looking for 6th. Big block, too, as soon as he pulled clear of Harvick. It is on PS4, alright, good to know. I figured it was going to be, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I don't have the next-gen console yet. I know a buddy of mine bought a PS5 a couple weeks ago, or like a month ago or so, whatever. And it's like, they still have more in stock if I wanted to get one, but I'm still just kind of holding off just for the sake of it. I don't need it right now. Not until next year's NASCAR game comes out, at least. Means this one wasn't available for it. Carl Edwards getting stuck now behind Scott Wimmer in the 22 car, and that's going to allow Matt Kenseth to move up to P5. Still alongside Wimmer, hasn't cleared the 22 yet. Final corner on the track, and now he'll clear him, and Edwards to the inside of Wimmer. We'll go to Mark Martin in the 6 car next, as Kenseth is driven up to 5th. And Martin's still back in 10th, right in front of Mike Bliss, who was in 11th behind him. Bliss had a great run, finished 7th in points in our Do It for Dale Series Cup season. Running 11th though, not too shabby right now. Road course ringer Mike Bliss. Not really, but really. I don't think Martin's going to get up into the top 5 like Kenseth did, but I do think he can definitely gain some positions and put himself in a better shot of trying to get a top 10 before the end of the race. I just don't think Martin's gone the right way with some of the adjustments he's made compared to other cars in the field tonight. We are at lap 99. Martin just ran a 107.256. That was faster than any lap any of the Roush cars have ran today, including Biffle. Biffle ran a 67.28 earlier. That was a 2.5. So a few hundredths quicker than that from Martin. So he's desperately trying to close on Bobby Labonte. There are 2 drivers out of the race today with engine failures so far. Martin about 25 seconds off of Biffle, who is the leader. Martin maybe a little too far back to catch Labonte. Slides the rear tires just a bit. Little bump to the back of Labonte, trying to move him up out of the way. He knows that Kenseth raced the 18 car pretty hard, and we got a caution for the first time today. Martin saves it. Bobby Labonte into the wall after Martin had moved Labonte in the hairpin. Labonte got into Martin. Both cars went up into the grass, and we're right at the edge of the pit window trying to make it to the end of the race from here. That's a caution in a weird spot. Labonte up against the wall. Our first yellow of the day, with a couple drivers battling for 9th of Mark Martin and Bobby Labonte here. We're going to pit Martin. He's not going to make it on fuel tires. He can't pit for fuel tires being involved in the accident right now, but that's a tough break for him. Kind of a racing deal there with the 18. I wonder if that was retaliation, though, from Martin moving Labonte out of the way, but Martin knew that the 17 got squeezed by the 18 and he wasn't going to take it. Jamie McMurray will get the free pass in the 42. And this is going to be our first restart of the day, so maybe a shot Greg Biffle might lose the lead here, but we were just outside the fuel window, so nobody pitted. So nobody's going to go off strategy either, trying to take tires and lose track position. Green flag back in the air, 39 laps to go at the Daytona road course. And a double flower restart with all the lap cars at the front of the field. On the inside of the lead lap cars, will contact in the back of the pack between Martin and Spencer. As after Martin got into the back of the one of Truex. Martin trying to get these spots back. Just past halfway through the fuel and tire stint. Martin fighting. Power drive into the corner, 3 wide in the hairpin. We haven't seen 3 wide much today. Really, that was only the second time, and they were barely 3 wide, if that. Side by side in the same corner, we saw that one accident between Martin and Labonte, but again, Martin kind of hangs on right now. Got some cars peeling into the pits right in front of Martin. Martin 3 wide in the tri-oval with Casey Mears, Travis Quaffle, a couple dodges on his outside. Quaffle thought about blocking Mears. They're going to be side by side, though, into the first turn, and Martin's going to get around both of them for 14th. A lot of cars hit pit road that last time. Window may be open to the end now. So we have 38 laps to go. Window about 38 to 43 laps. Biffle still out in front, has led every lap so far. Big dive by Martin to the inside of Marlin. One of the only Roush cars also that pitted was the 99 of Edwards that last time. Mark Martin, though, he's getting a lot of these spots back on the restart. Up to 9th, right where he was when he wrecked. A lot of cars pitted, though. He'd probably still be just outside the top 20 if that wasn't the case, but still. Restarting in 30 is pretty good for Mark Martin. We might see some more cars pitting potentially this time. That is not the case. Martin will just draft with Johnson as he's side by side with Shane Neal. 107.496 that lap. Martin charging in hard into turn 1. Oh, Johnson making contact with the 175. Knocked him into the grass, but not into the guardrail. That was on the outside, luckily. Martin alongside Lapper, John Andretti after getting around Johnson for 8th. Closes the gap on Tony Stewart. Clears the 14. It was down underneath, and we'll go to another Roush Fenway Ford, this time by at the line. Mark Martin. What a restart from the 6. And he's up to P6. Went 3 wide in the hairpin. It worked out well for him. Mark Martin trying to get back into this the hard way. And now he's on the inside of Kurt Busch in the 97, who side drafted Matt Kenseth. They're slowing each other up. Martin's got a shot at 4th. It's going to be 3 wide. We'll go to Carl Edwards in the 99, who is already pitted. He's still going to be on the lead lap, but he is back in the 24th place position with Labonte, who also pitted. Edwards is the lead car, though, of those who had already made their final stop. Interesting, to say the least. Well, at least that half spin didn't really hurt Martin too much. Right back in. He's got a little older tires, but you wouldn't have thought anything of it off the restart. Greg Biffle's led over 100 laps today. Every lap from the start off the pole award he had won in qualifying. Edwards is 30.1 seconds back of his teammate Greg Biffle, but he's got a lot of clean air in front of him. And who knows, maybe Edwards could be in a spot on slightly fresher tires, trying to make up some time on the Biff. It's doable. .107.136 that last lap for Carl Edwards. And that was now the fastest lap of anybody so far today, at least of the 5 Roush Fenway Fords. First time we've seen anybody in the 67.1s. Martin ran a 67.2. Biffle's ran some 67.2s. And now Edwards, the 67.1, and who knows, maybe we see lap times in that 66-second lap barrier at some point. I wouldn't doubt it at this rate. Especially Biffle having the fastest car in the field once he gets fresher tires. It looks like on the track map he's kind of pulling away from the field on the restart again. And he just has the right setup in that race car today. Definitely a walk in the park for the Biff. He was in this position, though, in the Daytona 500. Engine wouldn't allow him to make it to the end. Today it would be even more devastating because he's led every single lap. 106.953 for Carl Edwards. What a lap. What a lap. I was wondering if we were going to see 106s today, and we saw it out of Cousin Carl at least. I wonder if Biffle could get a lap time like that. Edwards definitely the fastest car on track right now. Maybe Edwards made the right adjustment call. Just said it's possible, yeah. I ran it right after I saw your comment, though. At least on my end, like a 30-second delay, though. There's a car that's blowing up, but they did make it into the pits. And it is not one of the Roush Fenway Fords, which is good. One more lap, and then we'll go to Kurt Busch, I believe, is the last one we have to race as. So we'll go to Kurt Busch next. And then with Biffle the rest of the race after that. .32 laps to go this time by when Greg Biffle gets to the start-finish line. Again, trying to go wire to wire in today's Daytona Road Course event. The good news is with this field pass, we're seeing the speed Carl Edwards has. And we're seeing the time he's making up on these fresher tires and clean air compared to Biffle's clean air and older tires. And we're not going to know the distance between these two once we, you know, transfer to Kurt Busch here in a few seconds. So will you have to possibly change that strategy call if you're Greg Biffle as far as maybe you don't go 4 tires? That's a lot you're asking for out of your tires, but at the same time, that might have to be the way you're going to have to go. Kurt Busch looking low under Mark Martin. Matt Kenseth gets back by Martin. Gets back by Kenseth. Kurt Busch up to P4. Biffle's got a lot of pressure behind him right now. Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon are pulling away with the Biff. Kurt Busch trying to get in the mix to maybe help his teammate out. Four laps with Busch at the line before we go to Biffle the rest of the race. Saw 66.905 out of Edwards. That's impressive. Literally ran his 2 fastest laps of the race the last couple laps. Busch only 1.8 seconds off the lead. Gordon trying to get alongside Earnhardt for second. This one caution we had with about 43 laps to go has changed everything. If you're going caution free, almost 100 laps into this race. Some cars definitely good on fuel and tires at the end, some are not. They still have to pit yet. Busch closing in. Gordon, Earnhardt, Biffle. Earnhardt a little bit wider. It's gonna try to make Gordon pass him on the outside in the next corner. Earnhardt maybe a little tight in the dirty air behind Biffle, which could be hurting him as well. And Kurt Busch has caught up. Top 4 within 0.6 of a second of the lead right now. 30 laps to go at the Daytona road course. 107.002 for Busch that last lap as he was in line behind Gordon. Into turns 1 and now into 2 they go. Oh, Gordon got into Earnhardt a little bit. That's going to stack those cars up, and Gordon gets weeded out of line by the 97. Up off the curb goes Gordon, and he's back into Busch again as they make more contact. Somehow both cars held it. And Earnhardt's going for the lead on Biffle. On the inside. Busch trying to get around both of them. What a corner by Busch. He gets by Biffle. He runs Earnhardt up the track. Slides in front of the 8. The 16 down to the bottom. Earnhardt to the outside. 3 wide for the lead. Earnhardt up off the curb as he tries to pull alongside the 16. What a battle. Biffle holds on to the lead for now. Earnhardt almost got into the 16 car. Busch on the inside of Earnhardt. Oh no, they're going to be 3 wide. This isn't going to work. Oh my goodness. That got nuts. Earnhardt got sandwiched. They're going to be 3 wide again. Oh my gosh. Edge of your seat action at Daytona. Oh, Busch got a little wide, caught the right sides in the grass. Still alongside Jeff Gordon for 3rd. It is treacherous to get around these corners right now. Gordon holds clear of Busch. What a battle. One more lap with Kurt, and then we'll go to Biffle the rest of the race. Busch pulling out of line into turn 1. Dives deep into the corner. Locks the tires up. Clears Gordon for 3rd. Biffle's led every lap today, but he's by far under the biggest challenge for the lead he has been all day. As these guys battle, that's better for Edwards. Contact between Busch and Earnhardt again. Gordon almost got underneath the 97 as a result, but not quite. Busch a little too hard into the hairpin as he's trying to get around Dale Jr. Busch with a bumper to Earnhardt side by side for second now. Busch will have the advantage on the inside in the final corner. Kurt Busch is up to second. Jr. into the wall up off the final quarter. Gordon has to check up behind him, and now the Roush Fenway Fords of Greg Biffle and Kurt Busch pull away slightly. And we'll go to Greg Biffle the rest of the race. What a battle we're seeing here late. 4 cars now, just 2. Again, don't forget about Edwards, who may be the leader following pit stops. If you are Greg Biffle, again, when do you pit? We're under 30 to go. Window's obviously open to the end of the race. Kurt Busch is going to pit this time. So will Jeff Gordon from 4th. Busch obviously in 2nd. 107.476 that last lap for Biffle, and I think Biffle's going to have to pit this time. There are too many cars that have been pitting. If a caution comes out, Biffle's going to be restarting right around 20th or worse, so... This late in the race, I don't know if it's possible to necessarily get back through the field. Especially considering, again, Biffle's led every lap. He hasn't had to pass these super fast cars at all today. Had to fend him off there for a little bit, as he saw, but he didn't have to pass him. Like they were trying to pass him. And 30 likes on the stream. Be sure to hit that like button. Subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you haven't already. As ramping up here towards the finish of this race. Greg Biffle will pit this time by. Can't speed. It'll be 4 tires and fuel. Biffle's in. Did not speed. Did a great job. He didn't even lock the tires up. 4 tires and fuel for Greg Biffle. No adjustments on the 16 car. Tim Irvin, thanks for tuning in. Jackman made a mistake on the right sides of the last green flag stop for Biffle, and now it's the left front tire changer. A second bad stop for the 16 team. This one even more costly because not only it's the last stop, but it was even slower. An 18.9 second stop. Kenseth Stewart cycle in front. Earnhardt leads for the first time today. What a mistake again. And now Biffle is going to have to pass these fast cars, as we have just 25 laps to go at the Daytona road course. That was not a good stop. Execution has not been there on Biffle's pit crew today. Only one of the 3 stops were clean and fast. Biffle's going to have to go, and he's going to have to be aggressive. Gets by Stewart quickly. He's going to have to get by these guys cleanly at that, too. Gordon cycled ahead of Bobby Labonte. You just wonder where Carl Edwards is at. He's probably going to be the leader. These are the first laps. Dale Jr. has not led yet today. Or sorry, that Greg Biffle's not led yet today with Dale Jr. out in front. As we currently speak. I did watch the series premiere of the Race for the Championship. I haven't watched any of the other ones yet, but I do plan on watching the whole series at some point in time. I just haven't gotten around to it. Outside of the first episode. But yeah, the Jackman messed up the first stop. Second stop was a left front tire changer. Struggling trying to get the lug nuts on the race car. Had one yellow today. Maybe we see a second. Who knows? Biffle's charging hard, trying to get by Bobby Labonte. Gets alongside of him. Be on the outside for a couple corners, I hope. They can stay alongside of him so he can be on the inside in the hairpin. And that is the case. He's going to be well underneath Labonte. He's going to try to really outbreak Jeff Gordon in the 24 as well. And Biffle will do just that. Clears Gordon and Labonte. He's passed 2 cars this lap, and he got by Kenseth, actually, I believe, in turn 2, so Biffle's passed 3 cars per position that lap to move up to 11th. Mark Martin leads for the first time today now, so he'll get 5 bonus points leading for the first time as he tries to stretch his fuel window out as much as he can. That's on you. That is not on you. That was just a coincidence. Locking the tires up. He was just trying to keep it off the wall. Junior's going to cycle out right in front of the 16. He's only going to have about 3 lap fresher tires. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference here. I could see Carl Edwards, who would be the eventual leader, so at least he's within sight. Biffle's had a fast car today. It's by no means over. Definitely putting his team on his back today, though, that's for certain. Not 1 but 2 pit road mistakes have led him into this situation. Dale Jr. going to drive it in deep, trying to get by Kurt Busch. They're side by side. Biffle's going to make it 3. This is going to get tight. This is the same corner Labonte and Martin wrecked earlier. And they're still 3 wide. They have not made contact yet. Now there's contact. Up the track goes Earnhardt. Biffle forces his way by Dale Jr. And now he's alongside his teammate Kurt Busch. I didn't think they were going to get through like 3 or 4 corners 3 wide. They almost did until that very last corner heading towards the front stretch. Biffle will clear Kurt Busch into turn 1. This is for 2nd place at least once the top 6 pit. Top 5 actually still have to pit. 6th place would be 6th place would be Carl Edwards. So once the top 5 hit pit road, Edwards will be the leader. Biffle will be likely in 2nd unless one of those other drivers cycle out in front. I don't think they will. They're losing a lot of time right now, staying out much longer than everybody else. But the will to not lose for Greg Biffle is the reason why he is fighting. He has dominated this race. It'd be a shame if he didn't win. He's had the fastest car, but his pit crew now twice have made mistakes. Both under green flag stops. All the pit stops under green. Nobody pitted under caution at all today. Martin stays out, but everybody else pits, so that means Edwards will be in P2 this time by. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 for Roush Fenway Racing, but Martin still has to pit. What an impressive day from this Ford camp. Biffle's still about 22.5 seconds roughly behind Martin. Edwards has made some adjustments, but Biffle's got fresher tires with Edwards pitting much earlier than everybody else. So all that time he was gaining, he's starting to give it up now, and that's part of the reason why Biffle's closing in. Plus, again, Biffle's had the fastest car all day. If anybody could beat him, it may be his teammates on speed. Edwards a bit wide in the hairpin compared to Biffle. Biffle going to close the gap more. Martin stays out of the pits this time. 20 laps to go at the Daytona road course. Even if Martin does fuel only, he's going to be on pit road, I would imagine, longer than 21 seconds. Greg Biffle closes in on Carl Edwards. He'll try to hop in the draft in the tri-oval. Gain a little bit more time back to the line. 107.273, one of the fastest laps for Biffle today. As he powers to the inside of Edwards in turn 1, into turn 2, Greg Biffle to 2nd. And the eventual lead once Mark Martin pits as Biffle has rallied again. Only 3 different leaders in this race today. Martin, Biffle, Earnhardt. And only Earnhardt and Martin have been able to lead during green flag pit stops. Martin is 20.8 seconds ahead. Biffle will not catch him unless he pits, but we know he has to pit yet because he's only pitted twice for fuel and tires. But he will not pit this time either. Martin really just trying to go as far as he can. He's really going to pit any lap here. Biffle's just got to hope another caution doesn't come out at this case. That one came out for Martin and Labonte, and now he's going to have to try to hang on here. All RFK races. Well, it's not Roush Fenway Keselowski yet. Keselowski wasn't even in NASCAR at this time. I think he might have been running like part-time in the trucks, but definitely wasn't in the Cup Series yet. Still looking at a 1-2-3 finish for Roush, though, the way they're running right now, even after Martin pits. And Kenseth has been in the top 5 at times. Martin's leading now, but even before that, in actual speed, he was as high as second at one point very early in the race. Was even around 6th or 7th the last we saw of him as well. I think he was in 6th. Send the yes, just swap to Martin, then have him pit. No, we're not gonna do that. Biffle's making up time on much fresher tires. He's almost a second a lap quicker. And look at how much he's pulling away from Edwards on fresher tires than the 99. The 99 has fresher tires than Martin currently, but it's Martin who has even less or more laps on his tires than Biffle compared to Edwards. Caution right now would actually probably hurt Martin worse than anybody else, considering he still has to pit. Even with caution laps, he's not going to make it on field to the end. And that would mean that he's going to end up having to restart. Well, there were 31 cars on the lead lap, I believe. It was somebody else blew an engine during this green flag run. I don't know if it was a lead lap car or not. So at least 30 cars on the lead lap. And that would drop Martin from a potential top 10 back to 30th on the restart again. He'll have fresher tires than everybody else, though, to try and get his way through because of how long he's staying out. I don't know that's going to work out for him necessarily. Try and get back-to-back top 10s to start the season in our Daytona doubleheader with the 500 followed by today's race at the Daytona Road Course. Again, Biffle obviously has led the most laps today, so doesn't have to worry about Martin ever having a shot to catch up to him on most laps led. Biffle's going to end up leading over 100 laps today once he gets back into the lead. And Martin will be pitting this time by. We'll have 16 laps to go at the line. And Mark Martin's on his way into the pits with a 16.5 second lead at the time of him pitting over Greg Biffle. Yeah, if caution comes out while Martin's on pit road right now, he'd be the leader. At least until Biffle cycles up in front of him. 16 to go. Biffle in the lead. And we'll have an official lead change this time by once Biffle gets back to the start-finish line. Now, you just got to get to that white flag is the next thing for Greg Biffle to run some time trial laps. He's only really made one small minor error driving-wise today. And that was clipping the inside wall in turn 1, but it didn't even knock him into the grass. I mean, it just kind of slowed him down for one corner. Other than that, Biffle's been perfect all day on hitting his marks. He's got the handling, he's got the speed. That's a deadly combination any track you go to. But a road course, though, keeping that track position in the clean air, definitely even more important, maybe, than any other track as far as an oval goes. Not going to win the Daytona 500. This is not going to count me never winning at Daytona in the Cup Series. It kind of counts, but it really doesn't. I haven't won at Daytona in the Cup Series on an EA Sports game. And even the races we've ran at the Daytona Road Course, I don't think I've won any of them either. between NASCAR Thunder 04 and 05, but looking to hopefully win this one. That would be the first on the road course layout. Still going to have to get the win on the oval, but maybe it'll add more momentum for Biffle to maybe get a win on the Daytona Oval when we go back there for the summer race this year. He also raced there with, I think, the 11th, the last race of the season also. He's got 2 more shots to win 400-mile night races at Daytona yet before the end of the season. He's going to cut it back in points quite a bit. I know it's only 1 race in, but he's 42nd. It's only about 80-something out, but it's 42nd. This is probably going to gain him like 20-plus spots in the points with this win. And leading the most laps. It'd be a max points day. 14 to go, though, at the line this time. .271 that last lap. Biffle had about a 15.5-second lead over second before that caution came out with about 43 to go. I did win Speedway Boulevard. I guess that kind of counts too. Daytona Beach Street Course. That counts less than this. I don't remember winning the Daytona infield on NASCAR 05. Okay, maybe I did. Even if I did, that doesn't count towards winning at Daytona International Speedway, the Oval. I mean, if you look up on Racing Reference Daytona Road Course, it's a completely different track on there compared to Daytona International Speedway. So, and it should be, even though it's at the same facility. 2 completely different layouts. Not even comparable to one another by any means. Other than the sense its geographical location is the same. R6, welcome into the stream. 13 laps to go at the Daytona Road Course. 8-second lead for Greg Biffle and pulling away with the clean air at the end of this race. Has put himself in great position. Ran a smart race all day long. A little aggressive there, trying to go 3 wide with Dale Jr. Kurt Busch a little while back, at the time running for eventual second place, 3rd on the track at the time of the battle, trying to get his way through the field after his pit crew had lost him the lead, but again, he has gotten it back and out in front. The only laps Biffle has not led today. Led over the first 100. It's going to keep him from getting 200 laps led on the season through the first 2 races. He's going to have plenty more chances to lead more laps this year, though, I'm sure of it. 32 likes on the stream, by the way, so far. I greatly appreciate you guys hitting that like button today. One of the cleaner races we've had in a while on this game, I will say. Especially for the Cup Series, considering these races are a lot longer. And 142 laps at a road course, you would have told me we were only going to have 1 caution today. I wouldn't have believed you. It's still not the case, though. We could still get a yellow. And we'd have a restart with less than 10 laps to go if that were the case, so wouldn't have to worry about any lap cars being on the inside of the lead lap cars. That will also open up the opportunity to maybe take the lead in turn 1 for that car in second place. He's just going to have to quickly try to get through the gears and hop to the bottom as soon as he can. And we do see a restart. He held on to the lead during the first restart of the race, so we know he can do well. Pressure going to be on a lot more now, though, than what it was 30 laps ago. There was definitely pressure then, but not like it is currently. Even with the 1 caution, though, slowing the pace down just for a few caution laps, I think we're still going to get this race in under 3 hours. Which I did not think was going to be the case. I was thinking this was going to be a near 4-hour race today when I saw how many laps it was, but that is not the case. Next road course on the schedule will be the Talladega infield layout, the Talladega road course. And I believe that is kind of... no, actually, the next race is actually going to be the New York Metro Speedway, if I'm not mistaken, which would be a fantasy road course before Talladega. And that'll be a New York City street course race. So, super speedway, road course, then a street course for the first 3 races of the season. "100 laps to go," or 10 laps to go. I had an extra 0 by accident. Biffle just ran his fastest lap of the race, 107.193 that last lap. Not the fastest lap we've seen today from a Roush car, but outside of what Edwards was running there for a little bit. Edwards never got to lead a lap, though. If Martin would have pitted sooner, then Edwards would have been able to get bonus points, but that was not the case. I would not doubt that Kurt Busch is in second ahead of Edwards now as well. Edwards on a little bit older tires than those other cars that will battle him for position late. Bobby Labonte in the top 10 at the time would have been the next closest driver in the same pit strategy that Edwards was on as far as to the lap when he pitted. Who knows, maybe it's the posted paint scheme that's good luck for Greg Biffle. I'll have to remember that later in the season. That lap even faster than the lap before. By about 5/100ths of a second for Greg Biffle, so he is putting together some great laps, just desperately trying to get to that white flag as soon as he can. Daytona 500 ended under caution. It is worth noting, and the caution came out with 2 to go, so he might not have to get to the white flag. If he gets within about the final 5 laps, it could end. Sometimes we get the green-white checkers, sometimes we don't. I'll run other paint schemes for sure. We'll have Granger, Subway, Charter. We'll have National Guard on the car again before the end of the year still. Multiple times yet. That being the primary scheme. But 1 for 1 with the posted car, though. Especially when you consider the fact that we didn't have this posted paint scheme in NASCAR 04 or 05. 106.948. What a lap by Biffle. Oh, jeez, just clobbered the wall there for a second in turn 1. After running his fastest lap, he's going to probably run one of his slowest now after that corner in turn 1. What a lap from Biffle. Second time he's clipped that inside pit wall going into turn 1. That was faster than any lap Edwards was running earlier. Just goes to show Biffle came to play today. I also want to say it's worth noting, Greg Biffle's on the Dale Jr. download last week on his podcast. I have not watched all of it, but I have watched some of it. But I thought it was kind of coincidental because we literally ran a Do It For Dale series season with Dale Jr. And then after we ran that with Dale Jr., we go in the same game to the Cup Series with Greg Biffle now. And they would happen to be on the same podcast with each other last week. Like the same week we were transferring from one season to the next. I find that very odd. It was by no means planned. Kind of curious as to how much faster Biffle could potentially go as far as lap time. This is not manual. I don't trust myself with the buttons on this game. Sometimes I don't trigger all the way. My controller's old. Back in the 67-1. I don't know that Biffle's going to pull another 106.8 out of his rear end by the end of this race, but I'll keep trying. Halfway on fuel. Plenty of fuel, though, to the end of this race. We'll be coming up on just 5 laps to go at the start-finish line this time by. Oh, 7.111 that last lap for the Biff again. I want to see if I have like a 106.7 somewhere in me. I'm really just trying to stay as glued to the bottom as possible. Sometimes the curb throws you. You don't want to really be all the way near the curb every single corner. I mean, we're not side by side, so it's not like it would start my lap too much. Risk wrecking or anything of that nature. 106.962 again. All the 106-second lap times, though, Biffle has ran have been in these final 20 laps. All 3 of them. The last one was definitely another. Hey, Carjoy, thanks for tuning in. Coming to 3 laps to go at the start-finish line this time by. At the line. Oh my gosh, a 106.830. Fastest lap of the race for Biffle in the third to last lap of the race. It's amazing, though, like, how much, if I, like, really put to it, how much faster I could run. I would not be able to do this for all 142 laps. It would be mentally exhausting, but, you know, it's just kind of fun in the heat of the moment right now to be able to try to do something like this. Got 18.5-second lead right now for Biffle as well. We coming to 2 to go at the line. Just trying to get to that white flag. No cautions come out on the final lap in these EA Sports NASCAR video games. 106.880. Another 106.8. Back-to-back laps, he's done so. Definitely pushed hard into turn 1. 106.928. Final lap of the race. We're going to finish this out with just one caution today, and it was at the 43 lap to go mark at lap 99, or 99 laps completed on lap 100 when the caution actually flew. And no problem for Greg Biffle today, other than his pit crew, but he was able to bounce back despite 2 slow stops of the 3 green flag stops today. All 3 stops in the race, again, were under green. And his largest lead of the race is right now at almost 21 seconds, as he'll be coming to the checkered flag in just a couple more corners. It'll be the first career win on a road course for Greg Biffle. It'll be one of my very few wins on an EA Sports game in any series at Daytona, but it will not be on the oval yet. Checkered flag will wave. 142 laps on a road course in less than 3 hours. Wicked pace ran by the field today, especially by the winner. Greg Biffle will win his first race of the 2005 custom schedule season as he wins the Florida 500K at the Daytona road course. Burning it up against the wall. Couldn't have asked for a better win for Biffle himself as far as dominating goes early in the season. And we will check out the finishing results and the updated point standings following the second race of the year. How about that, though? 1-2-3 finish for Roush Fenway Racing. 132 of the 142 laps in the race was led by Biffle. And he is now just 8 laps away from leading 200 laps already after 2 races in the season. Carl Edwards ends up finishing second. Kurt Busch ends up third. Dale Jr. led 2 laps during green flag pit stops, finishes fourth. And Bobby Labonte rounds out the top 5 with a solid run. His teammate Tony Stewart finishes in 6th. Matt Kenseth in 7th. So, again, for the 2 races to start the season, in the first 2 races, 4 Roush Fenway Fords finished inside the top 10 in those 2 races. Dale Jarrett ends up finishing in 8th. Mike Bliss 9th. He's looking for another top 10 points finish this year. And Jeff Gordon rounds out the top 10. Finishing 10th, and Mark Martin, the 5th Roush car, who led 8 laps, stayed out maybe just a little too long during green flag pit stops. I can understand if he wanted to get 5 bonus points staying out 1 lap longer, but that probably cost him a top 10, because I think he was like 5th or 6th before the stop started. Fell back to 11th, maybe even further than that, but could only get back up to 11th if he was even able to pass cars late. Had a total of 29 cars finished on the lead lap today. And we had a few engine failures. Kyle Busch, after a top 5 finish in the Daytona 500, finishes last at the Daytona road course with an engine failure. Jason Leffler blew an engine. Scott Riggs blew an engine. Jimmy Johnson blew an engine at lap 109 as well. And Ricky Rudd ends up finishing with an engine failure, or not finishing the race with an engine failure in 39th. So a couple of bigger names back there in the field. Of course, Johnson being one of which. And here is Greg Biffle in victory lane, winning his first race of the season. Let's go. First of many, hopefully. Next race will be at Martinsville, under the lights. 500 laps. That'll be coming your way probably sometime next week on the channel. Maybe Monday is what we're shooting for, potentially, for that Martinsville 500, but it should be a good race whenever we get around to it. Who doesn't like Martinsville? 500 laps. It's the only Martinsville race on the custom schedule season, but again, it is a night race. These NASCAR EA Sports games had the original Martinsville night before what we know of today. Martinsville under the lights. Somewhat of a fantasy setup. Kurt Busch leads in points, or at least tied with Tony Stewart. Stewart technically has the tiebreaker because he does have a win. Kurt Busch does not, with Stewart winning the Daytona 500. So Tony Stewart will be the points leader still through the first 2 races of the season. Back-to-back top 10s for both of them. Obviously, Kurt Busch getting a top 5, I believe, in both races. So 2 top 5s for Kurt to start the year. Kenseth Edwards still top 5 in points as well for Roush. Bobby Labonte 6th, Martin still in 7th. Mike Bliss is in the top 10 in points. So he's picking up where he left off. Greg Biffle has literally gone from what, I think I was 41st in points after the first race. I gained 29 spots in points with this max points day at Daytona. And now less than 100 points out of first. So there you go. That's unbelievable. Obviously, with it only being the second race of the year and having that engine failure at Daytona didn't help. Actually, no, I think I was 39th in points because I ended up getting the most laps led. If I remember right, I was 39th. But still, that's 27 spots gained in points in one race. I don't care if it's the first race, the last race. That's a lot. So just like that, despite a DNF in the first race of the year, I mean, we're right back in the early season title picture. 34 races still to go, though. Long ways. We're going to have a lot of fantasy tracks. We're probably going to have some really tough races in there. We know Dover, Charlotte, I stink at in this game. Daytona, I stink at in this game. Talladega is hit or miss. So we've got some tracks that might not go our way, so we just have to make sure that we're in contention most of the way through the season, so when we get to those tracks, it doesn't bite me in the rear like it did in our Do It for Dale season. It cost me a championship. So like and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. I'll see you guys tomorrow night on the channel. Good chance I end up doing... let me check the scheduling here first, but I don't have the streaming schedule up this week because I do have an event I'm going to Saturday. I still plan on streaming. I'm not sure what time yet, so that's why I didn't have anything set in stone. I'm not sure if I want to do a Busch Series doubleheader tomorrow or if I want to do a Truck Series doubleheader tomorrow, but I should have a chance to do one of the two. I'm seeing what races I have next on both schedules. We'll go Busch Series. We'll have a Busch Series doubleheader tomorrow on the channel. How does that sound? Busch Series doubleheader. The two races will be Bristol under the lights and then Watkins Glen. So that'll be an interesting one. You won't want to miss the Watkins Glen race. Those are both going to be 100% races with 250 laps at Bristol. 82. You know what? Maybe I won't do that tomorrow. No, I will. I'll do that tomorrow. So that's when I'll start the stream. And we will start also at 7 p.m., not 6. So I'll give myself an extra hour so that way I don't run late tomorrow or risk running late. So 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Busch Series doubleheader. And we will be running at Bristol and Watkins Glen for those two races. I'll see you guys then. Thanks everybody for watching. Reagan Fan 6 Blood. Thanks for tuning in there at the end. Whether you were watching or just tuning into the chat for the first time. But thanks everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. And we should have another good stream.